Picture this. You've done everything right, or at least everything you were told to do. You've spent 2 years grinding in the gym, building a 6-figure business, and crafting an impressive lifestyle. You drive a nice car, you dress well, you read the right books, listen to the podcasts, follow the dating gurus. On paper, you're the ideal man, the man women are supposed to chase, the man everyone said you'd become if you just leveled up. And yet, when it comes to women, something feels off. They're polite, not passionate. They might say yes to a date, but you always have to initiate. You feel like you're carrying the energy of the interaction, pushing it forward, keeping it alive. You don't get texts just to say hi. You're not the man they tell their friends about or daydream about. You're not the one they're obsessed with. And deep down that frustrates you, because you know you've worked hard. You've become the man you were told women would desire, so why don't they? Meanwhile, your friend, the guy who lives in a tiny studio, drives a beat-up car, and doesn't talk about goals or hustle. He's drowning in female attention. Women text him first. They want to be around him constantly. They try to impress him, chase him, keep his focus. They don't play it cool around him. They lean in, they light up. They want him, and they show it. You watch all this happen, and it doesn't make sense. You're the one who's high value, right? This is the moment many men reach. The moment when effort stops matching results. And it forces a painful but necessary realization. What you've been taught about female attraction is not just incomplete, it's completely backwards. You were told to stack achievements and women would follow. But the truth is, women don't become obsessed with your resume. They become obsessed with your presence, your energy, and how they feel when they're around you. The issue isn't that success, status, or self-improvement are bad. The issue is that you were taught to believe they create attraction, that they guarantee interest, that if you just become impressive enough, you'll bypass rejection and inspire passion. But that's not how female desire works. Attraction isn't a reward for hard work. It's a response to energy or internal state. And your internal state can't be faked or built solely through external success. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The very things you believe make you attractive may actually be killing women's desire for you. Not because women hate success, but because the way you relate to your success can reveal something unattractive: neediness, insecurity, or a lack of self-worth that still craves validation. And that's the energy women are unconsciously repelled by. Think about this. A man who genuinely knows his value doesn't need to prove it. He doesn't need others to recognize it. He doesn't try to impress, he just is. His self-worth isn't hanging on the outcome of a conversation or a date. He's free. And that freedom is magnetic. Now contrast that with the man who, despite having the right lifestyle, is always performing, always trying to be enough, always thinking about how he's being perceived. He may look successful, but emotionally, he's still chasing, still seeking, still hoping to be chosen. Women feel outtanned no matter how much money he makes or how lean he gets. That underlying energy places him in the not quite category. This realization is difficult because it invalidates the blueprint most men have followed for years. It says that success isn't the key to attraction, your relationship with yourself is, and that changes everything. It means you can't game your way into real connection. You have to become the kind of man women are naturally drawn to. A man who leads from the inside out. Not a man who performs confidence, but one who embodies it. And that's what this journey is really about. Not manipulating women into desire, but becoming a man who no longer needs to chase it. A man who attracts through authenticity, not effort. And the moment you step into that internal shift is the moment everything else, attention, affection, desire, starts to flow naturally. Attraction, as most men understand it, is based on a checklist. We're told to level up, make more money, get in shape, learn social skills, build a great lifestyle, and women will naturally find us irresistible. This belief is everywhere. It's in movies, dating advice, self-improvement, communities. It sounds logical. After all, who wouldn't want a partner who's successful, confident, and fit? But when you look at how real attraction works in practice, something doesn't add up. We've all seen it. A man with everything money looks status still, can't hold a woman's attention. He takes her on expensive dates. He says all the right things, but she loses interest quickly. Meanwhile, another guy, who's far less impressive on paper, seems to effortlessly attract women who chase him, desire him, and even obsess over him. What gives? The answer lies in the concept of sexual market value discrepancy, but not in the way you've been taught to think about it. Most men believe sexual market value, SMV, is based on objective traits. You add up your income, body fat percentage, height, charisma, fashion sense, and social status. The more you have, the higher your value. Women, in theory, should be attracted to the highest value man available, but that's not how female desire actually operates. The real currency of attraction isn't what you have, it's how you're perceived, and perception is shaped almost entirely by your internal state. Here's where things get flipped upside down. You can have everything society tells you should make you high value, but if your energy says I'm trying to prove myself, you instantly drop in her internal ranking system. She might admire your achievements, she might respect your drive, but she won't feel that raw, magnetic attraction. Why? Because you've placed yourself beneath her by needing her. Validation. Women are constantly and unconsciously evaluating a man's status relative to their own. They're not doing it based on numbers or stats. They're doing it based on how you carry yourself, how you respond to them, how you move through the world. In those subtle, unspoken moments, they decide, is this man above me or below me? And that one judgment determines everything that follows. If she sees you as below her, she won't feel the urge to chase you, no matter how great your life looks from the outside. If she sees you as above her, she'll feel that pull, that obsession, that desire to win you over. And here's the twist. Most men miss. Trying to show her how great you are almost always puts you below her. Effort to impress is the giveaway that you don't believe you're enough as you are. That effort, no matter how polished or well-intentioned, creates a dynamic where you're seeking her approval, and the second she senses you need something from her, validation, attention, sexual interest, you've given up your power. Contrast that with a man who's rooted in his own value. He doesn't need to talk about his success. He doesn't need to be flashy. He doesn't care whether she likes him because he already likes himself. His internal confidence does all the work. She can feel it in his tone, his timing, his stillness. He's not trying to impress. He's just being himself, unapologetically, and because he isn't chasing her validation, she instinctively sees him as higher value. This is the real secret behind perceived sexual market value. It's not about external markers, it's about how solid you are internally. A man who is calm, grounded, self-assured, and completely non-need radiates a kind of power that can't be faked. Women sense that, and they respond to it on a deep, emotional level. Sexual market value discrepancy isn't a numbers game. It's a perception game. And perception is created by your internal state, your beliefs, your self-worth, your emotional control. When you start operating from a place of true self-belief, not performative confidence, you shift how women see you. You stop being the guy who's trying to be chosen and become the man who chooses. That's when the dynamic changes. That's when women start to pursue you. Most men spend their entire lives focused on building external value. They chase money, physique, social proof, skills, and lifestyle upgrades, all under the assumption that these things will make them attractive to women. This is what society, media, and even most dating advice has conditioned men to believe, that if you accumulate enough visible success, confidence will follow, and women will desire you. But the harsh truth is that external value is never enough on its own. You can build the perfect life on paper and still feel invisible to the women you want most. Why? Because women are not attracted to your assets. They're attracted to your energy, specifically, the energy that radiates from your internal state. This is the key distinction between external and internal value. External value includes your job, income, fitness, fashion, status, possessions, and lifestyle. Internal value, on the other hand, is your emotional stability, self-belief, groundedness, self-validation, and the ability to remain centered regardless of circumstances. Women respond to the emotional resonance of a man more than the list of things he owns or does. That's why a man with modest means but strong internal value can be more attractive than someone who seems to have it all but is internally fragile. When a man's confidence is dependent on his achievements, it's conditional. It can be shaken or destroyed the moment something changes. If he loses his job, gets out of shape, or doesn't receive external recognition. This kind of confidence is brittle because it's built on performance and perception. But women are experts, often unconsciously, at sensing what's real versus what's performative. If you're using your success to try and gain approval, they'll see right through it. They may even admire your ambition, but they won't feel that magnetic pull of desire. True attraction doesn't come from being impressive. It comes from being internally complete. Internal value is rare. It's the energy of a man who knows who he is, who accepts himself fully, and who doesn't need others to validate his worth. He doesn't seek approval because he's already given it to himself. This self-validation is what allows him to show up authentically, without pretense, without fear. He doesn't overthink what to say. He doesn't try to control how others perceive him. He simply shows up as himself, and that authenticity is incredibly attractive because it's so uncommon. This doesn't mean external value is meaningless. It's not, but it only amplifies what's already there. If your internal state is strong, if you're grounded, confident, and self-validated, then external success can enhance your presence. But if your internal state is weak or needy, then your achievements become a mask, not a magnet. They won't draw people in. They'll actually push them away, because they reveal the gap between who you are and who you're pretending to be. Women don't become obsessed with what you have. They become obsessed with how you make them feel, and the way you make them feel is directly tied to your internal energy. A man who is present, emotionally stable, and outcome independent makes a woman feel safe, seen, and intrigued. He doesn't create anxiety through neediness or desperation. Instead, he offers emotional clarity and a sense of grounded power, which is irresistible. This is why some of the most outwardly successful men fail in relationships. They're used to being admired for their accomplishments, but admiration isn't the same as desire. You can be respected, even envied, without being wanted. Women desire men who live in their truth, who are self-contained, who don't chase, who don't perform, and who don't place their self-worth in her hands. The shift from external to internal value is not about doing more. It's about being more self-aware, being more self-accepting, being more emotionally resilient. When you cultivate internal value, you become the kind of man who walks into a room and doesn't need attention but gets it anyway. You stop asking, how do I make her like me? And start asking, am I being true to myself? And in that space, attraction becomes effortless. Because internal value is what draws people to you, not what you've achieved, but who you are without needing to prove anything. Presence is one of the most underestimated yet powerful forces in male attractiveness. It's not flashy, it's not something you can show off on social media, and it doesn't come from memorizing clever pickup lines or rehearsing dating strategies. Yet it's the quality that separates men who women remember from those they forget. Presence is the ability to be fully engaged in the moment physically, mentally, and emotionally. It's about being here, not in your head, not in the future, and not stuck in fear or strategy. When you're present, women feel it immediately, and it changes everything. Most men aren't present. They're distracted, self-conscious, outcome-focused. They're thinking about what to say next, whether they're coming across as attractive, or how the interaction is going to end. Even when they're physically with a woman, their mind is somewhere else replaying past failures or anticipating rejection. This lack of presence is subtle, but women pick up on it instantly. It makes them feel disconnected, unimportant, and emotionally unsafe. They can sense when a man is more interested in managing impressions than genuinely connecting. When you're truly present, you stop performing. You stop seeking reactions. You stop over-icing, and in that stillness, a woman feels seen. She feels understood without you needing to say much at all. Presence is rare in today's world because we're all conditioned to seek stimulation, validation, and distraction. Most people don't even know what it feels like to be fully in the moment with another person. So when a man shows up with calm, focused attention, it stands out like a lighthouse in a storm. Presence is the expression of internal security. You don't have to rush to fill silences. You don't feel pressured to be entertaining. You're not trying to control her perception of you. You're just there, engaged, grounded, open, and paradoxically, this makes her lean in. Because presence is power. It tells her that you're not desperate for her approval, that you're at peace with yourself, and that you can hold space not just for her words but for her emotions, uncertainty, and desires. This is why women are drawn to men who are calm and composed. They're not attracted to emotional flatness, but to emotional centeredness. A present man doesn't need to prove himself, fix things, or control the situation. He listens deeply. He responds intentionally. He pays attention to the energy in the space, not just the words being said. This level of attention makes a woman feel safe enough to soften, to express herself more fully, to become more emotionally open, and, in that openness, desire grows. Presence also creates polarity, natural tension between masculine and feminine energy. Feminine energy flows, moves, emotes, reacts. It's spontaneous and expressive. Masculine energy, when it's healthy, is steady, directed, and still. When a present man meets a woman in her feminine energy, it creates a magnetic contrast. She feels held, not in a controlling way, but in a deeply emotional sense. She doesn't feel like she has to lead or manage the interaction. She can relax into her natural expression because she senses that he's emotionally capable of leading the moment. But you can't fake presence. You can't pretend to be grounded while frantically rehearsing your next line in your head. Women have a deeply attuned emotional radar, and they can feel the difference between real presence and forced stillness. The only way to become more present is to develop a more stable relationship with your own emotions and self-worth. When you're not at war with yourself internally, you can actually be with someone else without needing anything from them. A man who is present is not waiting for a specific outcome. He's not attached to whether she likes him, kisses him, or wants to see him again. He enjoys the moment for what it is, without expectation. Ironically, this detachment creates the strongest attraction because it signals abundance. It says, I don't need anything from you to feel good about myself. And that energy is incredibly rare and desirable. Ultimately, presence is about giving your full attention without trying to get something in return. It's about meeting a woman where she is, without judgment or agenda. When you cultivate this quality, you don't just become more attractive, you become unforgettable. Because presence is the foundation of real connection, and in a world full of noise, distraction, and manipulation, the man who can offer genuine presence is the one women crave the most. At the core of lasting attraction, the kind that leads to deep emotional attachment and even obsession, is internal peace. This isn't something that can be faked, borrowed, or built from the outside in. It comes from doing the difficult inner work most people avoid, healing past wounds, letting go of external validation, and arriving at a place of genuine contentment with who you are, where you are, and what you have right now. This inner calm, this quiet certainty, creates a kind of magnetic field around a man. It draws people in not because he's trying to be attractive, but because he no longer needs to be. Most men are trapped in a cycle of self-rejection. Their self-improvement is driven by the belief that they're not good enough as they are. So they grind in the gym, hustle for money, develop game, and read countless books, thinking that if they just become more impressive, more women will finally love them. But when the core belief behind all that effort is, I'm not enough, the energy they give off still carries that insecurity. No matter how polished their exterior becomes, that internal anxiety leaks through. It's felt in the way they speak, react, seek approval, and fear rejection. Men pick up on this immediately. It's not about what you say, it's about the energy behind your words. A man who lacks internal peace is constantly searching for attention, affirmation, affection. His sense of worth rises and falls based on whether a woman texts him back, laughs at his jokes, or gives him the kind of response he's hoping for. He may be outwardly successful, but inwardly he's fragile, emotionally reactive, and vulnerable to external fluctuations. But a man who has cultivated internal peace is different. He's calm not because life is perfect, but because he's no longer fighting himself. He doesn't need attention to feel validated, and he doesn't panic when things don't go his way. He's not emotionally volatile. He's steady, like a tree with deep roots. A woman in his presence can feel that groundedness. She knows intuitively that he won't lose himself trying to please her, or chase her, or overinvest, just to gain her approval. This lack of emotional neediness is what creates real polarity. It gives her space to soften, to become emotionally vulnerable, and ultimately, to crave more of him. When a man is internally at peace, he becomes outcome independent. That doesn't mean he's indifferent or detached from life. It means he's no longer emotionally dependent on things going a certain way to feel good about himself. He can express interest in a woman, but if she's not interested, he doesn't spiral. He can enjoy a moment of intimacy, but he doesn't cling to it or try to make it last forever. His self-worth isn't riding on how well a date goes, or whether a woman stays. That emotional freedom makes him incredibly attractive because it's so rare. You can't develop internal peace through hacks or shortcuts. It takes real work. It requires you to look inward and ask hard questions. What are you still running from? Whose approval are you still chasing? What would you do if you weren't trying to impress anyone? Most men have never truly asked themselves these questions, let alone answered them, but those who do begin to break free from the programming that keeps them stuck. Internal peace doesn't mean you stop growing. It means you grow from a place of self-love, not self-rejection. You work out because it makes you feel strong, not because you hate your body. You make money because it aligns with your goals, not because you think wealth will finally make you worthy. You pursue women because you enjoy connection, not because you need them to fix your loneliness or prove your value. When you operate from this place of inner wholeness, everything changes. You stop reacting, you stop chasing, you top chasing. Start attracting not just women, but respect, opportunities, and authentic relationships. People want to be around you because your energy is rare. You don't drain others with neediness or mask insecurity with bravado. You simply exist with strength, ease, and clarity. And that, more than any line, status, symbol, or strategy, is what makes you unforgettable.